The morning was unusually quiet in the gated community of Stone Ridge Hills, the kind of quiet that made lawns look too perfect and neighbors too polite. The birds chirped as if they were on script. Sprinklers clicked to life in synchronized cycles. Everything looked exactly the way the HOA wanted it to look, flawless, orderly, controlled. Maya hadn't been home in nearly 5 months. Work kept her busy to visit her retired parents more than a weekend or to a year. But, after wrapping up a confidential operation out of Quantico, she promised her mother a quiet visit, no stress, no drama, just coffee, breakfast, and maybe a walk with Juno, their German shepherd. She had no idea that her casual morning walk would trigger a chain of events that would uncover corruption, expose a secret surveillance network, and end with handcuffs just not on her dot. Juno tugged at the leash, eager to sniff every bush along the main path near the community clubhouse. Maya walked in yoga pants and a hoodie, earbuds in, head down, relaxed for the first time in weeks. She didn't notice the golf cart at first, humming toward her like a predator in silence. The HOA security guard was new. His name tag, Reed Briggs, but his face was unfamiliar. He wasn't just patrolling, he was hunting. You there? Stop. The voice pierced through Maya's music. She paused, removed her earbuds, and turned to face him. Is there a problem? You don't belong here, he snapped. Where's your badge? Maya raised an eyebrow. I live here. My parents are in Unit 416. Briggs stepped off the cart, hand hovering near the pistol strapped to his thigh. I haven't seen you before. That's private property. Trespassing is a serious offense. Juno growled, low and instinctual. Maya's spine stiffened, but her voice remained calm. I don't need a badge to walk my dog. That's not your dog, he barked. We've had reports of someone casing houses. Description matches you. She blinked. That made no sense. You're making a mistake, she said slowly. He drew his weapon. Time fractured. Juno barked furiously, leash straining. Maya froze. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew how fast things could go wrong. She knew how itchy the fingers of undertrained men could be. She read the tremor in his hands, the twitch in his eye, the sweat along his collar. She had faced cartel members with rocket launchers and lived, but this was worse. This was home. I'm going to need you to get on your knees now, Briggs shouted. Hands up. Maya didn't move. Instead, she lifted her hands slowly, her voice precise. My name is Maya Caldwell. I'm a federal agent. FBI. You are aiming your weapon at a government officer on U.S. soil. This is a felony. Briggs hesitated, eyes widening. You're lying. Her response was simple. Call it in. But he DN single quotes T. Instead. He stepped closer. That's when her father appeared at the end of the street bathrobe. Coffee mug. Slipperzan dropped the cup in horror as he saw the weapon pointed at his daughter's head. Put the gun down. Her father roared. Briggs turned, startled just long enough for Maya to lunge. With a single movement, she disarmed him, spun him, and shoved him face down onto the grass. The weapon clattered beside him. Her hands never shook. Sirens began to wail in the distance. And as Briggs lay stunned on the lawn, she leaned close and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. You just pulled a gun on the wrong woman. The flashing lights bathed the street in red and blue, reflecting off the manicured lawns and spotless driveways like a twisted 4th of July. Neighbors emerged from their doorways, robes tied, coffee cups forgotten, murmuring in disbelief as officers cuffed the dazed HOA security guard and helped Maya to her feet. Her father stood nearby, barely able to contain his rage. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the helpless fury of a man who had just watched his daughter get a gun pointed at her head in his own neighborhood. The same neighborhood he paid into month after month, year after year, so it would remain safe, clean, and community approved. The HOA board president, Gregory Shaw, arrived minutes later, huffing down the sidewalk in his linen blazer and loafers like he was late to a wine tasting. He put on a smile as he approached the officers, attempting to charm his way into the scene. This is all a terrible misunderstanding, Shaw insisted. Our guard was just doing his job. We've had a rash of suspicious activity lately: porch pirates, vandalism, trespassers. He was only trying to keep everyone safe. Maya turned toward him slowly, her FBI credentials now visible on a lanyard around her neck. Her jaw tightened. He drew a weapon on me with no warning, she said. There was no threat. I was walking a dog. Shaw gave a tight, uncomfortable chuckle. Yes, but well, he thought you might have been someone else. We've been on high alert. Your guard never asked for ID. He accused me, escalated, and pulled a gun, Maya said flatly. That's not protocol. That's criminal. Shaw's smile faltered. We'll handle it internally. These things, they happen. No, she replied. They don't. Not to me. Not to anyone. Inside the patrol car, Briggs refused to speak. He stared forward, jaw clenched, eyes darting. It wasn't until he was taken to the station that he gave his first statement, and it changed everything. According to his report, Maya had refused to identify herself, became confrontational, and made a sudden movement consistent with drawing a weapon. He claimed he was forced to act out of an abundance of caution. He insisted she looked exactly like a known burglary suspect seen in the area, but the surveillance footage told a different story. Maya.com. Dog on leash. Earbuds in. Briggs speeding up in his cart, dismounting aggressively, hand already, near his firearm, and then drawn weapon. No provocation. No warning. The HOA refused to release the footage publicly. They called it a matter of internal review. Maya's father stormed into the next board meeting, demanding answers. He was met with vague apologies, careful phrasing, and a gentle reminder that the HOA had every right to enact its own security policies. They almost shot my daughter, he said through clenched teeth. And you're worried about policies? One board member dared to speak. With all due respect, maybe your daughter shouldn't have resisted. The room went silent. Maya, who had entered moments earlier, stepped forward. Every inch the federal agent they'd underestimated. Her voice was steady. Do you even know who you hired? Has anyone verified this man's licensing, background, or firearm training? Do you know how many laws were broken the moment he unholstered that gun? They didn't answer. Not one of them, and that's when Maya knew. This wasn't a lone guard gone rogue. This was systemic. This community wasn't being protected. It was being controlled. She turned to her father, then back to the board. I'm going to find out exactly what's going on here, she said. And when I do, I won't be asking questions. I'll be filing charges. As she walked out, a janitor in the hallway made brief eye contact with her. Just before she passed, he slipped a folded paper into her palm without a word. She waited until she was outside to open it. It read, "You're not the first." Maya stared at the note in her hand. The words burned into her mind like a whisper from a sealed crypt. You're not the first. The handwriting was rushed, slanted, and faintly smudged as if written by someone who didn't want to be caught even writing it. She glanced back at the building. But the janitor had vanished like smoke. Back at her parents' house, Maya sat at the dining table with her laptop open, blueprints and legal codes crowding her screen. Her coffee went cold as she clicked through state-level licensing databases. No registered armed security officers named Briggs. No firearm certification. No private patrol operator license filed under the HOA's name. It wasn't just negligence, it was a cover-up. Her father paced behind her, his voice rising. I trusted this place. I used to bring you home from college here. Remember, it was safe, quiet. That was the illusion, Maya muttered. They want it to feel like a fortress, but it's a dictatorship with sprinklers. She pulled up archived HOA meeting minutes. Most of the security changes were pushed through by President Shaw in closed sessions, citing community safety concerns. No votes, no community input, just redacted lines and vague bullet points. Maya leaned back, eyes narrowing. They're hiding something bigger than just a trigger-happy guard. A knock rattled the door. Her mother opened it, revealing a man in oil-stained overalls. It was the janitor. Without stepping inside, he looked Maya dead in the eye. I don't have long, he said. You need to see something. He handed her a flash drive, wrapped in plastic and hidden in a torn envelope. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Maya plugged it in. At first, it looked like garbage grainy footage, low resolution, random timestamps from clubhouse cameras. But then the patterns emerged. One file showed a teenage boy sitting on a curb, handcuffed, while two security guards yelled at him for violating curfew. Despite it being 6:30 p.m., another showed a woman being physically removed from the community pool, accused of unauthorized access. Though she screamed her unit number through tears, the timestamps stretched back a year. Dozens of residents targeted, harassed, removed, none of them white. Maya's throat tightened. This wasn't about theft, or safety, or policy. It was about control. There was one file labeled Archive B47. She opened it, and her blood ran cold. Briggs, with Shaw and 2 other board members, standing in the maintenance room, laughing around a map. The map showed homes marked in red, yellow, and green. Green homes had approved owners. Yellow had pending approvals. Red were tagged in review, watch. On one red-tagged home, a note read, "Family moved in before vetting. Watch activity. Possible gang ties." The name beside it was the same as the family Maya remembered moving in down the street last summer. They were a kind couple with 2 small children. Another home was tagged. Tenant confirmed undocumented. Dispatch patrol weekly. This wasn't an HOA, it was surveillance. The final clip showed something even worse: Briggs unloading a box of unregistered firearms from a plain white van marked Clubhouse Supplies. She yanked the drive and slammed the laptop shut. "We're not just dealing with illegal security," Maya said to her father. "They're operating their own private policing network. And I have a strong feeling at least one of these people has ties to a larger group." Her father's hands shook. "We need to go to the police." Maya nodded. "We will. But first I'm calling someone who can do more than just file a report." She picked up her phone, scrolled through her secure contact list, and tapped a name. Director Lowell, FBI Internal Ops. As it rang, her eyes drifted to the window. A black SUV she hadn't seen before was parked across the street. Its engine was still running. The black SUV didn't move for the next 40 minutes. It sat idle across from Maya's parents' house, engine humming faintly under the summer sun, its windshield too dark to make out a face. But Maya saw enough to know it wasn't local. No HOA security decal. No landscaping tools. No HOA van. Just a silent presence with government-tinted windows and a waiting driver, who hadn't stepped out once. She closed the blinds slowly. Across the table, her father was already dialing the local precinct. "They'll send someone. Just to be safe." "No," Maya said sharply. "Don't call the local police. If these HOA clowns have the resources to run a shadow patrol unit, they might have someone inside local enforcement. It wouldn't be the first time." Her father lowered the phone. Maya turned to her laptop again, then opened her secure FBI portal using a rotating passcode key. In less than 5 minutes, she uploaded the entire flash drive to internal operations with a case label: Stone Ridge HOA civil rights violations, unauthorized militia activity, potential RICO. Her secure message was brief, urgent. Need a forensic team and tactical asset review. Evidence of armed civilian patrols, unauthorized surveillance, and targeted harassment. Suspect wider network. Will initiate direct recon if no response in 24 hours. She signed it with her field code, MC19 Tactical Ops. Lead. The reply came 3 minutes later. Proceed. Surveillance team en route. Remain covert. Maintain pressure. Do not engage unless provoked. But Maya was already past covert. She didn't have the patience for red tape, not with Shaw's grinning face replaying in her mind, or Briggs' shaking gun pointed at her skull. That evening, Maya and her father walked into the HOA board's emergency session at the clubhouse. She wore all black, not tactical gear but a deliberate, sleek suit with a subtle holster under the jacket. She didn't speak as they entered, just handed each board member a sealed envelope containing the flash drive's highlights, photos, maps, logs, and the damning surveillance footage of their conversations. No one said a word as they watched the footage on the conference screen. The tension in the room congealed. Gregory Shaw finally broke the silence, his voice dry. "This is highly edited, and completely out of context." Maya leaned forward, her voice cold and precise. "I've submitted every file to federal authorities. Full audit is underway. Every financial transaction. Every deleted file. Every vendor you ever hired. Including your little private security firm, Graywall Services, LLC, which, by the way, doesn't exist in any legitimate database." Board member Lucinda Mendez, a realtor who had previously voted with Shaw, looked sick. "Greg, is this true?" Shaw glared at Maya, then at the trembling flash drive in his hand. "This is a gross overreach. We'll consult legal. You have no jurisdiction in HOA matters." "I do," Maya replied, stepping closer. "When you import illegal firearms, create unauthorized watch lists, and threaten federal officers, that's not HOA business, that's federal crime." One board member, Barton the treasurer, stood up, visibly sweating. I didn't know about the guns. I thought it was just surveillance for break-ins." Shaw's nostrils flared. "Sit down, Barton." But Barton didn't sit. His face crumpled as he turned to Maya. "You're not the first person they've tried to scare off. 2 families moved out last month after similar incidents. They weren't on the board's approval list. That's all it takes." Maya turned to Shaw. "You've built yourself a kingdom here, but kings fall, especially when they start arming their knights with unregistered weapons." Shaw rose, laughing bitterly. "You think anyone will believe you? All your so-called evidence is circumstantial. We've got lawyers that make senators shake." Maya smiled just barely. "Then you'll really hate the part where we freeze your accounts, revoke your firearm privileges, and pull your security footage for the last 2 years. She turned and walked out, her father trailing silently behind. Outside, the black SUV was gone, but in its place stood 3 men in dark suits, waiting beside an unmarked van. One of them nodded at Maya. "We're ready when you are." She exhaled, eyes scanning the clubhouse behind her one last time. "Let's burn it down," she said. By sunrise, the illusion of peace in Stone Ridge Hills had begun to crack. 3 unmarked vans had arrived under cover of darkness and parked along the outer perimeter of the neighborhood. No lights, no sound, just idle presence. The residents, many of whom still believed the HOA's promise of enhanced neighborhood safety, were clueless. But inside the surveillance van at the edge of the park, Maya sat with a team of federal agents combing through live feeds, HOA records, and encrypted communications intercepted over the last 12 hours. What they were seeing went beyond neighborhood misconduct. It was an infrastructure. Private patrol schedules were digitally assigned through a shadow app disguised as community updates. Board members coordinated surveillance through group chats buried in encrypted burner apps. Funds were laundered through fake maintenance work orders and funneled into a security slush account tied to shell companies with ties to private contractors, many of whom were former law enforcement. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Director Lowell. "This is bigger than HOA, possible militia network test site. Approach with caution. Green light issued. Proceed at your discretion." She stared at the message for a moment. Test site. Stone Ridge Hills wasn't just a rogue neighborhood. It was a proving ground by noon. She was standing at the clubhouse gate, again this time, not alone. 2 agents waited across the street, casually sipping coffee, appearing as joggers on break. A third sat inside a landscaping van, hands on a long-range mic. They weren't just watching now. They were ready to move. Gregory Shaw wasn't expecting her so soon. He opened the door to his office with a forced grin, clearly trying to maintain composure. "Agent Caldwell," he said, as if greeting an old friend. "Back so soon?" Maya stepped inside without permission. "I'm here to give you one final chance," she said. "Resign. Turn over all internal files. Release the community-wide surveillance footage. Disband the unauthorized security detail. Do all that by 6 p.m. today, or I'll personally execute a full federal raid." Shaw chuckled, circling behind his desk. "I don't think you understand the position you're in." She tilted her head slightly. "I think you don't understand the position you're in." He pressed a button beneath the desks, silent. Maya's hand was already resting near her concealed holster. "Nice try. That panic button you wired through the maintenance room. It's been rerouted. My team intercepted the signal 30 seconds ago." Shaw froze, his mouth parted, but no sound came out. She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a low, precise whisper. "Do you know what I command, Shaw? Do you have any idea what I'm capable of? My job isn't just arresting white-collar scum. I specialize in urban takedowns, embedded threats, domestic terrorism cells. And if I decide you're part of one..." Her eyes bore into his. "You won't be calling lawyers, you'll be calling for oxygen." Shaw swallowed hard, his face suddenly damp. "You wouldn't dare. This is just some overreaching investigation. A vendetta." "No," she said softly. "This is justice. And you started it." She turned to leave, pausing at the door. "One more thing. Briggs has been released into federal custody. He's talking." Shaw stiffened. "You're bluffing." Maya smirked. "He gave us names, details, shipment dates. He's more cooperative than you think. Especially when he learned you planned to pin everything on him." She left without waiting for a response. By evening, her tactical team was in position. Drones hovered silently above the clubhouse. Communications were being jammed. Power cut to all external security cameras. The team waited for her signal. All it would take was one word. But Maya held it. Not yet. Not until she got everything she came for. As dusk fell over Stone Ridge Hills, Maya stood alone beneath the entrance archway, watching the wind sweep across the perfectly trimmed hedges. That was the thing about perfection in neighborhoods like these. It always came at someone else's expense. The HOA clubhouse lit up like a stage under the beam of the drone's infrared camera. Inside, 7 board members gathered for what was supposed to be a quiet emergency session called by Gregory Shaw, under the pretense of strategic response planning, but Shaw didn't look in control. Not anymore. He paced the length of the conference room like a caged animal, sweat glistening at his temples. On the table, a laptop played muted footage from one of their own security feeds. It showed Maya, stepping into his office just hours earlier, calm, composed, deadly certain. She knows everything, he snapped, slamming his fist on the table. Briggs flipped. The feds are here. We're not dealing with some nosy homeowner anymore. We're dealing with federal jurisdiction. Lucinda Mendez, who had once backed every one of Shaw's initiatives without blinking, now looked pale. You told us this was legal. That it was just internal security. You didn't ask for details, Shaw barked. None of you did. Barton, the treasurer, stood up, his voice shaking. Because you threatened to have us removed if we objected. You lied to us. About the funding. About the surveillance. About the weapons. The others murmured in agreement, the first hints of a rebellion stirring. Outside, Maya watched the real-time feed through a handheld tablet in the tactical van. Her team stood ready, earpieces, synced comes active, vehicles positioned at 3 points along the clubhouse perimeter. She had everything she needed for a takedown, but this wasn't just about prosecution, it was about exposure. Switch to mic channel 6, she said. The tablet's audio feed crackled, then steadied just in time for her to hear Shaw snapping. You all knew what we were doing. Don't act like this is a surprise. We kept undesirables out. We kept the neighborhood clean. That's not your call to make, Barton said. We're not Border Patrol. We're a homeowners association. Shaw's voice dropped to something venomous. Do you want to know what really happens when the wrong people move in? Crime. Drugs. Gangs. This place was a disaster before I cleaned it up. Lucinda pushed back from the table, disgusted. You sound insane. Shaw turned to her. No, I sound like someone who understands what order means. Maya muted the feed. Now, she said into her cum. The operation began. Federal agents burst through both front and back entrances, weapons drawn but lowered, voices sharp and commanding. FBI. Hands where we can see them. The board members froze in shock, some standing, some stumbling backward in their chairs. Shaw didn't resist. He couldn't. By the time Maya stepped through the door, his hands were already zip-tied behind his back, his bravado crumbling in silence. Maya walked to the center of the room, her gaze sweeping over the stunned board. You've been operating an unauthorized private surveillance regime, she said calmly. You've profiled residents based on race, immigration status, and income. You've funneled HOA funds into illegal arms purchases and hired unlicensed security to enforce your fake laws. She tossed a folder onto the table. Inside were photos, transaction records, drone surveillance stills, and signed witness statements. This isn't an HOA anymore, she said. This is a criminal enterprise. Lucinda's eyes were wet as she looked at Maya. I didn't know it went this far. No one ever does, Maya replied. Until it's too late. 2 agents approached Shaw, but he spoke before they could haul him out. You're making a mistake, he hissed. You think we're the only ones. Maya tilted her head. What do you mean? Shaw smiled, cruel and tired. Stone Ridge was just one of many. There are others. Dozens. We were just the first to test the blueprint. Maya's jaw tensed. He leaned forward, his voice like a dagger. You think you stopped something. You just started it. The wind tore through the desolate trailer park like it had somewhere to be, kicking dust into the air and rattling the rusted metal awnings hanging from every crooked lot. Maya stood at the edge of the gravel entrance, flanked by 2 agents, in plain clothes, watching a single light flicker inside a beat-up trailer near the back. A Confederate flag had been half burned into the siding. A small security camera blinked above the door. Briggs was hiding here under a fake name, in a burner trailer paid for with cash. Just like the records had suggested, he'd been on the run since his release from local custody, and internal ops had traced him through a string of suspicious wire transfers, money that hadn't come from Shaw, but from an unknown third party in another HOA development, 3 states over. That was the detail that changed everything. This wasn't about one corrupt neighborhood anymore. This was a network. Maya raised her hand, signaling her team into position. One circled to the rear. Another crouched behind an abandoned sedan on the side. Her voice came through the earpiece, low and steady. Briggs is armed and paranoid. We want him alive. Keep the pressure tight and the commands clear. Her knuckles tapped twice on the trailer's steel siding. Inside, nothing moved. Then footsteps. A creaking floorboard. The rustle of someone grabbing a weapon. She ducked back just as a shot punched through the thin wall, exploding wood where her head had been, but no return fire came from her team, just a swift breach. FBI, hands in the air. Do not reach for that weapon. Briggs was dragged out 90 seconds later, cursing and shaking. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, and his hands scraped, raw from trying to crawl through a broken window. Maya stepped into his view, emotionless. You were the muscle, she said, not the brain, but now the brains are in federal custody, so let's talk about your role in all this. He spat near her shoe. I want a deal. You're in no position to want anything, she replied coldly. You're looking at conspiracy, illegal possession of firearms, racial profiling, civil rights violations, and about 6 other things I haven't had time to name yet, but if you tell me who gave you the funding and which HOA you're connected to outside Stone Ridge, I might keep you out of federal prison for the rest of your life. He looked at her. There was fear in his eyes now, but it wasn't about the charges, it was about what he knew. It goes higher than Shaw, he muttered. He wasn't even in charge. He answered to someone in Arizona. Guy calls himself Langston. Big money. They're setting up private neighborhood patrols all over the country, places where the city cops won't tread. They're not guarding against crime. They're guarding against undesirables. Whole systems built to keep people out. Maya's stomach twisted. It was worse than she thought. Where's Langston now? I don't know. Last I heard, he was relocating to another HOA development outside Phoenix, Desert Pines or something. He's expanding. Says the HOA model's perfect quiet, off-grid, no oversight. No one questions a guard in a golf cart. Maya turned away from him. Her voice clipped. Take him in. Secure isolation. No communication access. As Briggs was loaded into the van, she called Director Lowell. We have a multi-state operation forming under HOA jurisdictions, private patrols, illegal enforcement, social engineering. This isn't about a neighborhood anymore. It's an extremist network in disguise. Lowell was silent for a moment. Then, you want a task force? No, Maya said, eyes narrowing. I want authorization. For what? She watched the sunset bleed across the trailer rooftops like fire. Her voice was ice. To bring this entire thing down. 3 weeks passed. Stone Ridge Hills, once the pristine fortress of false security, had been stripped down to its bones. The security gates were gone, dismantled by county order. Surveillance equipment was ripped from light poles, clubhouse keys confiscated. The HOA board had been dissolved. Most of its members were facing federal charges, and Shawstone faced and silent awaited arraignment for crimes he could no longer deny. Maya stood alone at the top of the hill overlooking the cul-de-sac, hands in her jacket pockets. Children were riding bikes again. A neighbor waved. The air felt breathable for the first time in years. Her parents had decided to stay, at least for now. With the HOA gone, the neighbors had formed a volunteer committee, real community, people who wanted safety without tyranny. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Maya should have felt relieved. But something was wrong. Briggs had gone silent in federal custody. His initial cooperation had stopped cold after his 3rd interrogation. When pressed, he simply said, I've said enough. They'll know if I say more. And then there was Langston. Every lead dried up. The supposed Arizona Pines existed on paper, but the listed properties were shells. No residents, no records, no Langston. Almost like he never existed. Lowell had called her 3 days ago. The task force had hit a dead end. Funding reallocation was already underway. The Bureau had moved on. But Maya hadn't. She was at her parents' house one last night before heading back to Quantico. Her bag was packed. Juno lay curled at her feet, tail thumping softly. The neighborhood was still, the kind of stillness that should feel peaceful but pressed too tightly on her lungs. She walked out to the front porch with a mug of tea. The moonlight glinted off the roof tiles. Crickets chirped lazily. Then she heard it. A click. Faint. Mechanical. She turned sharply. Across the street, the old guard shack stood empty. the windows boarded and the foundation scheduled for demolition. But now, the floodlight over the door had blinked on, and inside, a red LED on the old radio console glowed faintly. Maya crossed the street in silence, her footsteps slow and deliberate. The grass was damp, the air smelled like ozone. Her hand hovered near her sidearm. She stepped inside the shack. Dust covered everything. The chair lay overturned, the shelves empty. The old walkie-talkie charging station still sat against the wall. One radio was missing. She turned. On the floor, right near the door, lay the walkie, small, standard issue, silent. She picked it up. The moment her fingers wrapped around it, it crackled. A voice came through. A voice she'd never heard before. Calm, confident, Agent Caldwell. She froze. The voice continued, smooth as silk. You've disrupted progress. That was unfortunate, but expected. She said nothing. Stone Ridge was a pilot program. We have many others. Dozens, in fact. Some more. Refined. You've bought a few weeks of peace. That's all. Maya's pulse was steady, but her grip tightened on the device. You should walk away now. The war you think you're fighting. A pause. We started it 20 years ago. The line went dead. She stared at the walkie-dot, then slowly raised it to her lips. I don't care if you started it. I'll be the one who ends it. She crushed the device under her boot, the plastic cracking like dry bone. Behind her, the neighborhood, lights blinked off. Not all at once, one by one. Like someone was watching, pulling switches, testing her. Maya didn't flinch. She stepped back into the night, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she was leaving home. She felt like she was walking onto the battlefield. The end. For now.